every time Samyra would just be on the internet, she would have to battle all of these comments about her body.
Small bits of fat phobia just kind of assert themselves in everyday life to kind of enforce this status quo.
Skinnylicious, skinny pop. I mean, honestly, any of those brands that incorporate this idea of skinny to allude to it being healthy is rooted in fat phobia.
There is no such thing as being skinnyphobic. And yet, that is the reason so many people on TikTok are coming for a creator named Samyra, who dared to point out that we shouldn't be using the word skinny when we want to talk about healthy. But this backlash is deeper than just ignorance. For today's episode, I was joined by author Cecily Bowen to talk about why people are so determined to misunderstand Samyra's point, and how hypocritical this conversation becomes when we talk about another woman whose weight is the subject of internet discourse, Ariana Grande. We are here today to talk about a creator named Samyra, but really this is a conversation that is so much bigger than I think just one creator. It's also one we've had a few times on this podcast, which is sort of how do we talk about bodies online if we talk about them at all? But let's start with the Samyra of it all, because it was one of her videos that sort of kicked this off again. We're just going to play it in full now.
And while we're chatting, Cheesecake Factory's Skinnylicious menu is fatphobic. The fact that it is named Skinnylicious because it has fewer calories and quote unquote healthier options, it is fatphobic. That is not that is not an opinion, that is a fact. And I would say argue with your mama, but she probably fatphobic too.
So that's the video. I was like, it's quite short. And it kicked off so much. But let's start with Cecily. Were you familiar with Samyra? I had seen her content before. I kind of couldn't believe that was the video that started all this.
Yes, and I actually would just like to remind the internet that I've been following Samyra for a very long time. Actually, when Samyra was like viral and known on the internet for being a vocalist, Samyra initially came to the platform. She used to be able to like perfectly recreate like Nickelodeon intro songs, like Fairly Odd Parents and shit. She could do like all the different voices. She also can sing very well. She's like a Harvard graduate.
Timmy is an average kid that no one understands. Mom and Dad and Vicky always giving him commands.
And what I saw happen in real time was that every time Samyra would just be on the internet, she would have to battle all of these comments about her body. And then that is what kind of like her continuing to do that is what is how we got this content creator, Samyra, who is always having to talk about fat bodies, about her body and fat phobia in general. And I hate that, you know, I think that she's found some success in it. I definitely think it's harder work. And I just hate that she couldn't continue on the path that she set for herself when she initially came to TikTok. But yes, that is how long I've been following Samyra, before she was forced to talk about fat stuff all the time.
Interesting, because I knew she was a singer, and she's released some songs. And yes, she went to Harvard. She graduated in 2022. But it is so, and I don't want to jump ahead, but so interesting that so much of the stuff, like the backlash she gets now is like why don't you talk about anything else but this? And to find out that she came on the internet to do something entirely different, and these same commenters kind of forced that to be the thing she has to talk about a lot, is just like deeply both ironic and just very, very frustrating. But so yeah, like you said, she did kind of pivot or evolve into making a lot of content, you know, like, so the Cheesecake Factory video is just an example of a genre that she does frequently, which is either, you know, going into stores or just going into spaces and kind of pointing out the ways that lack of adequate sizing or like affects someone's, you know, like that someone who is fat can't just go into a store and shop for clothes there. Like they're almost never available, but even if the brand has them, they keep them online. Or in the case of this Cheesecake Factory video, just sort of pointing out the ways that sort of fat phobia, small bits of fat phobia just kind of assert themselves in everyday life to kind of enforce this status quo. And so that's when I hear that video and what she's saying, that seems fair to me. What was your reaction to the video?
First and foremost, she's correct. Skinnylicious, Skinny Pop. I mean, honestly, any of those brands that incorporate this idea of skinny as like their offering, either to make people skinny or to allude to it being healthy, is rooted in fat phobia. And I think the reason this got so much backlash and the reason so much of Samyra's content gets backlash is because what Samyra is actually pointing out is how fat phobia is so institutionalized and how it is so pervasive. I think it would be very, very different if Samyra was pointing out the ways that people are mean to fat people, because then everyone would be on board that people should be treated fairly and kindly no matter what size body that they are in. But when we start to talk about fat phobia as a systemic issue, one that impacts fat people in everything from travel to healthcare, that's not even getting into the clothes. When we talk about fat phobia as a narrative that has been systemically ingrained into our culture, which is why we get menus like Skinnylicious, then all of a sudden people are uncomfortable, because then what we see is that way more people participate in that than just folks who are mean to fat people one-on-one or, specifically like that.
People feel more called in. And it is interesting what you're saying, because the comments, I mean, it'll range from like, it's not that deep, or to like, you just hate skinny people. And then people have been doing this joke. Well, they'll drop like, oh, like a picture of Skinny Pop and be like, oh, is this fat phobic? Or they'll drop like the name of a skinny margarita, be like, is a skinny margarita fat phobic? And it's like, the whole point is like, kinda like, but anything where it's like skinny equals healthier, it's like, you're kind of doing the work for her by pointing out just how many examples there are of this. And they're trying to use it as a gotcha, but it just furthers her point that it's in everything.
And this also brings me to my next point, which is that the unfortunate truth is that we are also collectively getting dumber. Because you are exactly correct. And I think that there is, it almost feels intentional, but sometimes I'm like, no, I think folks are just dumb. The way folks ignore the actual point of what Samyra said, which is that the language that we use about bodies, the language that we use around skinny and fat continues to perpetuate and support a culture and a system that is inherently disenfranchising and discriminatory to fat people. So yes, your skinny margarita, the fact that it is called a skinny margarita is kind of fat phobic, because they could have just called it a sugar-free margarita,
yes,
a low-calorie margarita. We have plenty of items that exist in the world that are low carb, low sugar, low sodium, whatever the health benefit is to the thing, that does not involve calling in a specific body type. And we're also dumber because even if that were true, calling out this culture also does not mean that she's skinny phobic. To say that I don't think things should be called skinny is not in any way perpetuating violence, harm, erasure against people who identify as skinny. I would also argue that skinny is one of those body goals that I feel like people are always chasing. I feel like people, even skinny people, are actually very reluctant to call themselves skinny. They always feel like they could lose another 10 pounds. So that also just tickles me, but that's another story for a different day.
Yeah, the idea of being, and it's like, I don't want to invalidate genuine feelings, but I don't think a lot of these things about calling her skinny phobic are genuine. But it's like the whole world is built for skinny people. The idea that you could be skinny phobic to a group of people that is not just not disenfranchised, but like actively a given opportunity, like you really like can't be. Like,
it's
you just
like
can't
saying
be.
that someone is heterophobic or reverse racist.
Like you're saying, I'm like, are you stupid? Or just like awful, or like a weird combination of both. The first thing I wrote was like, I'm surprised this happened, but I'm actually not surprised this happened. And I think there's a clip from Roxane Gay. The whole clip is great, but there's a specific section that I think speaks to like why this took off when it's like, as far as we're concerned, a pretty just benign statement.
Certainly, this is low-hanging fruit for people who were already poised to be fatphobic and to make various arguments against the kinds of work that Samyra was doing. And there's also this tendency where people in general don't have the courage to be assholes and to be terrible unless they're going to be supported by the crowd. So of course that makes fat women even more vulnerable online because it's a very easy target and very few people are going to step in and try and protect fat women and say like, hey, you shouldn't probably think that.
And I agree with this because it's like, if you were following Samyra, this is very consistent with what she posts. And so I do think that the thing that made this go viral is that it went not only to people who weren't familiar with her, but seemingly people who were just waiting for the opportunity to dunk on a fat person. And they saw this and they were like, great, now I can. And no one's gonna, like, I'm gonna be supported in the comments.
Yeah, so two things to that point. For as long as Samyra has been making content in support and in defense of fat bodies, a lot of the discourse around her has been a lot of policing of like her tone and her attitude. This idea that prior to this incident, a lot of the discourse that I would hear about Samyra on the internet was kind of just like, I mean, like, even if she is making a good point, I just find her annoying. They found her annoying. They found her too kind of like naggy about it, I guess, too persistent. They were tired of seeing her on their feeds because, you know, she is definitely a Gen Z girly and she produces the content, right? She puts it out. But there is something that is so interesting about that critique of her because it goes back to what I talked about in the beginning, which is that Samyra didn't even come on the internet to be a fat activist or to be a content creator around fat bodies. Again, Samyra came onto the internet as a singer and had to constantly battle extreme amounts of fat phobia and belittlement because of the way her body looked and was forced to then address some of it. And so what that means is that Samyra is not taking a place of like moral superiority or even intellectual superiority beyond the fact that like it's her experience, but Samyra is doing this work in response to what has actually happened to her in her body. And so to police like her tone and things like that is where folks lose me because Samyra didn't get on the internet and say, hello, I am a sociologist in how different cultures define body image, and here are all the things that I'm going to tell you about body image. No, Samyra said, wow, I came on the internet as a fat woman. Here are all of the ways y'all have tried to make me feel bad about my body. Here's what I know about fat phobia as a systemic cultural issue that allows me, one, to like not hate myself. That's the other thing. Samyra does not hate herself, and people fucking hate that. They hate that they have not made that girl hate herself yet. But yeah, not only am I going to not hate myself, but I'm also going to share with you all of the holes that I can, and all of the connections that I can make as to why this is a bigger systemic issue that actually doesn't just have to do with like what you think is your own personal dislike of me. And so, yeah, I think that Samyra is sitting at a very interesting place. And I have a lot of respect for her because, I mean, as a person who has called myself Bad Fat Black Girl on the internet for a decade now at this point, who has a book called Bad Fat Black Girl. I mean, literally here, Bad Fat Black Girl, right? It's everywhere. I've been calling myself fat on the internet. Part of the reason I remember being very intentional about using fat as a moniker for myself online because I wanted to lead with that as almost like a buffer because I knew what it was like to be fat on the internet prior to that. And I knew that if I was going to be visible online, that I needed to expect a lot of vitriol, a lot of pushback from literally just standing there smiling, saying, hey, I'm on vacation, or hey, I'm at work. Hey, had a cool event, right? Things that don't even have anything to do with fatness. And so I just, it gets extremely tiring to have to like defend your body all the time, especially when you're navigating the world and having to make certain decisions about your body when it's fat anyway that other people don't have to make.
Yeah. No, the thing with your username is actually something I was going to bring up, because something that happened or that would happen frequently because your username was like, it had fat black girl in it, is that you would show up in the Google results when people were searching that. And so it also speaks to Roxanne's point of like, there are people out there who are like just looking, they're like literally Google searching for the opportunity to be hateful. And I know like you would just receive that. Because I remember you also told me how to properly block people, and I've implemented this.
Yes.
Yeah. You're like, delete the comment, then block.
I wrote in my book actually about that phenomenon of me showing up prominently in the Google search for fat black girl, being often my photos often being used for fat phobic think pieces, whatever people, and it was always almost the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, fellas, she is the best cook you've ever had and gives the best head, but this is what she looks like. Would you marry her?
Oh my God.
Please.
Like, oh my God.
Or like women who like sell fucking yoni steams saying this is not an image of spiritual fitness, like just really weird shit. And
you're like, I'm on vacation. Yeah.
And occasionally I would find out, because also what would happen, or other people would see it and send it to me. Also, just for what it's worth, if you know someone who's like a public figure on the internet and you see like something negative that is happening about them but doesn't necessarily involve them, as for me, myself personally, you can actually not send it to me. Right. I actually, like I'm fine. It's gonna happen. And sometimes I'm just better knowing it doesn't exist, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm gonna have to ignore it regardless. What if I just didn't know about it? Yeah.
Except when I didn't. And it would always be so fascinating because I would reach out. This happened several times. Well, I'll reach out to the person who has like created this, and I'll be like, hey, this is a picture of me. I don't know what you got going on, but I would actually really appreciate it if my picture was not being used for this. And there were a couple of folks who were kind of just like, either just blocked me and was like, whatever, and didn't engage. But I was actually surprised at the number of people who were like, I'm so sorry, I just found this picture on the internet, and use it for, I think people think that everything that comes up on Google is just like free,
right?
Free to use, like free to use, but like, and sometimes it really just took, I don't think this makes them any less of a piece of shit, but I do think that sometimes it just took me reminding folks that I was a human being that would just maybe give them some pause.
Yeah.
Going back to Samyra, though, these people know that Samyra is a human being and they just don't give a fuck. They want Samyra to shut the fuck up.
You also mentioned something that I think is interesting about, like, people don't like Samyra's tone. My sense is that people feel even more comfortable making Samyra this caricature, not just because she's a fat woman, but because she's also a Black woman. Like, how do you think race is playing into this?
I think that race is this.
Yeah.
The connection between fatness and Blackness and the connection between thinness and whiteness.
Yes. Yeah.
They can never be divorced from one another. I think that fat Black women often represent like the epitome of fatness itself. Like, I think if you got 100 people, 100 Americans, I'll say, in a room and told them to close their eyes and picture what the average fat person looks like in America, I think a lot of them would picture fat Black women. You can't separate the two. And I will also, but to your point about Samyra's tone, I also think that like white folks have a very specific idea of what body positivity is, almost in the same way that white women have a very specific idea of what feminism is.
Yes.
That is not only just kind of flat, but it does rely on this faux positivity. And that anytime someone is not like, you just have to love yourself out of this, then they should not be allowed to essentially have the floor, that they should not be allowed to address these issues in the way that other folks are. So I think that actually has a huge role in how people are responding to her. I think we also have to, and this is, it might seem very obvious to like say, but like, it's also about how Samyra's weight plays into the conversation, because we just we also have become a culture where we only want to hear from people that we deem as like attractive and pretty. And folks who aren't have to either like justify their existence. They have to, or they have to really build an island around themselves and like that island with all the signs about like who is what. So like I make content for other plus size people to feel better about themselves. So if that's not you, keep scrolling, right? Whereas Samyra kind of just addresses the masses and addresses the culture. And I think the other reason Samyra's weight is an important part of this conversation is because people also feel very entitled to like publicly police fat bodies.
Yes.
I mean, like I think about all the experiences that I've had in like public gyms, or like on like I've been on an airplane where like I've sat down in my seat and the guy basically was like, yeah, you really should have got 2 seats. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just or in the gym and like people feel comfortable like touching a part of my body and saying like, and to work this, you should do this, or even just coming up to me and saying something like, good job, you know, when I'm like fighting for my life, right? Like it's kind of open season on fat bodies in a way that it is not for other people and other kinds of bodies, you know. I like,
Yeah.
Can you imagine, Kate, just being in the grocery store and like someone making a comment about like the health contents of whatever it is you have in your hand? Like like that's just one of those experiences that I think only fat people have, because people don't feel like fat people deserve the same basic level of like autonomy and respect, because people see fat bodies as something that require intervention.
Even just, I mean, I wouldn't recommend this because it genuinely is infuriating, but for the episode, I was just going through all the comments for all of Samyra's videos. And I mean, the fact that she still shows up every day and makes her content and pushes through this is wild, because it's like, you know, you should be working out, and then she's in a workout set and the comment is like, why are you wearing a workout set? Like, ironically, you're wearing a workout set. Or, you know, just like, even if a fat person online like wants to post what they ate in the day, or ate, you know, what I ate in a day type video, all their choices are policed. Whereas, yeah, it's like if someone is expressing disordered behaviors online about their body, it was very much like either like, shh, don't say anything, or like you saying something actually triggers this and it makes it worse. Like just there's so much more just like reverence, and like we must all think about this.
Empathy.
Yeah,
there's
empathy,
basic empathy for people who are not fat. That does not exist for people who are. I think that is at the heart of the issue. People lack empathy for Samyra because she is a fat Black woman. Everything about her is framed as a problem in the culture and society as we have it now. And she knows that, which is why she talks about it.
Speaking of white women, my internet is my internet. It's interesting to be, you know, working on this episode. Well, sort of my TikTok feed is like wall to wall Ariana Grande, and you know the fact. For many people, I'm sure they're getting all this.
When
as
I
well.
knew you, it was all Taylor Swift, Kate.
I know, but yeah, I'm here to report back. Right now, it is Ariana Grande, and you know, having these conversations side by side is really highlighting the discrepancy in how we talk about fat bodies versus skinny bodies, and also white bodies versus Black bodies, because the concern around Samyra's weight, it's framed as like a choice she's making. Like she's like choosing to be annoyed about all this stuff, and like she's choosing to be fat. Whereas like talking about Ariana, if they're talking about it, is that it's like she's suffering from this, and she's kind of removed from it. But like
this is something that happened to her.
Yeah, it has befallen her. Or it's like, don't talk about her body at all. Like, you shouldn't be saying this. Meanwhile, like, go look at Samyra's comments. Like, there is no such like decorum happening there. Like, it feels like free reign.
What is the creator's name who came up with Demure?
Oh, Demure. Oh, Jules LeBron. Yes, I saw Jules's video.
That is the response. That is the video.
It is crazy that you guys made fun of Samyra, and all she said was Skinnylicious is a crazy name for a low-calorie menu. She didn't say they shouldn't have a low-calorie menu. She said associating health with skinny is bad. And y'all made fun of her, and right after said Ariana Grande's too skinny, she can't be healthy. Which is it?
Samyra is crazy for suggesting that a menu being called Skinnylicious is wrong because it associates skinny with health. But then Ariana Grande is too skinny.
Yes.
And it can't be healthy.
Yes. Yeah.
Which one is it? Because Samyra never fixed her mouth to say that anything should be called fatlicious. She simply said that to call it skinnylicious is fatphobic because it reinforces the idea that to be skinny is the healthier choice. And we are seeing widespread concern for a pop star who is being deemed too skinny. And I also think that it is fascinating that folks are talking about Ariana's body as if, like you said, like this is something that is like kind of happening to her. This is, we're in this like Ozempic era, right? Where people are like very intentionally choosing to become smaller, skinnier than what they were. And we also don't have that same rhetoric for them. So like,
yes, yeah.
And there are other celebrities who are quite small, you know, I would argue. Have we considered that Ariana Grande also made choices to be this small?
Like, even in myself in writing this script, I was like, oh, I gotta stay away. That's such a minefield. And it's like, that is a testament to just like what we've normalized is okay, who we've normalized is okay to talk about and who isn't. And I always think about, when I think about the people commenting, both on like Ariana Grande's content and on Samyra's, it's like, who are the comments for, do we think? Like, because in the case of like Ariana, I don't think she's reading them. It seems to be, they're saying that we must talk about it for the women and girls who consume Ariana's content. And then like, basically both seem to be a sort of performance. And like because the comments on Samyra's seem to be like what Roxane Gay was saying of like, I am participating in this communal dogpiling and making sure I signal both to Samyra but everyone else, like the reinforcement of fat bodies are bad. Like, and it just, it is so, I'm always just like, who is this for when I see all the comments?
You know, and that's so fascinating too. And I love that Roxane said it so plainly that like people are too cowardly to just be assholes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though fat phobia is the one of the forms of like blatant discrimination that, I mean, is supported and not really, you know, protected against or anything like that. I do still think that, you know, we have reached a culture of like faux body positivity. We're coming online to say that, like, for example, I don't think that people over 200 pounds should be in Pilates is like a thing that you can say.
If you're 200 pounds, you shouldn't be in a Pilates class. There's no reason why they should allow 200-pound people in a level 2 class. You shouldn't be allowed to be a Pilates instructor if you have a gut and you're fat.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that
issue happening, but like there was also a lot of rumor that like she actually didn't get fired from her job for that. She actually didn't get, there actually weren't like the repercussions. Like she intentionally kind of did it to rage bait, that's just how she feels, and that there weren't many repercussions. And I'm going to be honest, I have to say, I can't imagine. I personally feel like I've worked places where a colleague of mine would not be fired for saying that they don't think that people who are 200 pounds should be in Pilates. And so, yeah, I do think that there is this, these moments create an opportunity for folks to show that they don't care about this fat liberation shit that all of you big bitches are talking about. We don't
Right.
care. And like, and instead of me just like posting about that unprompted on my own page, where is the opportunity for me to discuss that? And then Samyra often gives folks the opportunity to do that. It's like the great uncanceling of Chris Brown. I think about a lot. Like all the folks who just were like, oh, Chris Brown is being played on the radio again and is being like allowed to tour, is being recognized for these albums that he's putting out. Oh, thank God. I don't have to hide the fact that I don't care that he is
Yeah.
a terrible, violent piece of shit who almost killed Rihanna anymore. I can go and listen to this music and shake my ass.
Yeah, that's been wild to watch.
Yeah, it's been really crazy to see, right? But that is how, you know, the internet works.
If you are someone who is concerned about the trend of like, it seems like celebrities are getting skinnier, everyone's getting skinny, we're back in heroin chic, unrealistic body standards are back, then Samyra's content is for you too. Like, the things that she's pointing out are direct contributors to this idea that skinny is healthy, and that shopping for clothes above a certain size has to be done online, or like you have to buy an extra seat on the plane if you want to travel anywhere. Like, all of these things just reinforce you need to be thin. And so when we're talking about like, oh, everyone's getting skinny, we need to be talking about the fat phobia too, because those are directly connected.
They are quite literally two sides of the same coin. Like, they're literally the exact conversation. Anybody who is concerned about what Ariana Grande's body looks like right now, Samyra's content is for you.
Yes.
Because Samyra, if nothing else, is offering thoughtful call outs about the way fat phobia operates in our culture. A culture that would lead some folks to think that looking like Ariana Grande is the way to go. A culture that allows for folks like Ariana Grande, there's so many folks who might look like Ariana Grande to have a career, whereas we've still only had one Lizzo. You like the conversations are actually, those are the same audiences, but the internalized fat phobia that does not allow that audience to see the conversation for what it truly is. And then, you know, and I have to say, and I hope I do not sound conspiratorial,
I'm ready.
it
I'm ready
is
for whatever
not
this is.
a coincidence to me that, like, as we are in the middle of like our health foods being under attack
Yeah.
from like, you know, where so many, we are having so many issues with like our agriculture and our food, where we are really about to see like who actually is just like genetically made smaller and who is genetic, you know, because that actually is the truth of like who's fat and who's not. You know, a lot of the content about like weight loss and working out and fitness and stuff like is usually about people who are operating within like a 50-pound weight gain or 50-pound weight loss. If you're talking about someone who has always been either overweight or like what is medically considered obese or morbidly obese, who come from families of people who are considered obese or morbidly obese, like what we're actually talking about is just like a different body type.
Yeah.
We are now talking about a different body type. So in the same way that like we need like different products for hair that might be curly or kinky than we do for hair that is straight, I think we have a really hard time accepting that like there is also just body diversity, and that some people, their genetic makeup makes it so that they would have to go through extreme measures for the entirety of their life to be like, for me to ever be Kate size and to maintain that for any amount of time, I would have to undergo very extreme measures. For Kate to be and this is what people also don't want to hear. For Kate to become my size and maintain it for any significant amount of time, Kate would have to undergo significant and extreme changes to her lifestyle. It's not just that like, oh, Kate had such a great time eating pizza and ice cream every single day. Right. You might get fucked up skin, but I promise that would not make you my size, right? Like, or, you know, whatever it may be, right? And I think that like we have a really hard time accepting the scientific fact of biodiversity. And I think that the fact that this discourse of like shutting down honest conversations about fat phobia that is happening while we are, one, having all these issues with our health food, and two, seeing like an actual attack on science itself from our administration.
Yeah.
It's just extremely worrying to me, because there actually is so much literature on this topic from both social standpoints and personal memoirs and experiences like we get from Samyra or Roxane Gay's Hunger, but also just, you know, methodologically, like from scientists, and if folks just had any inkling to read anything, and not just watch a AI video on Facebook about it. I just, I do think about that as well. Like when I discovered that I was into feminism, right? Like, okay, I wasn't necessarily like going to watch like the YouTube videos about it, or I didn't have, that wasn't the makeup of our social media yet where we use it in that way. No, like I was just in that section at Borders. Right? Like at the, skimming through like what the literature and the conversations were about it. And I do think we've lost some of that like intellectual rigor. And it just shows all the time, and it scares me because I'm like, what if we get so dumb that we can't come back?
What I'm taking away from this, actually, and I think we can find a huge community behind us for this, is to bring back Borders, because I think we miss it, and I think that'll solve the literacy crisis that is connected to all of this.
Yeah, let's give Barnes and Noble some competition, also support your indie bookstores as well. But I mean, bring back literacy. Bring back literacy.
Yeah,
truthfully.
there you go. That's the message.